The Toyota 86/Subaru BRZ is one of the most versatile sports cars of the market. Its low cost, lightweight, balance, simplicity, and incredible tuning potential make it a popular choice for drag racing, drifting, time attack, autocross, or even just a fun daily driver. The Subaru BRZ has been running since 2012, but no matter how many you see on the streets, they just never get old. And while the BRZ shines in numerous performance categories, there is one field in which the Subaru BRZ falls short: power. The BRZ's 200 horsepower output isn't much to brag about, and ever since the BRZ was introduced, enthusiasts have been begging for a turbo to deliver more power, and Subaru has finally answered the call. Well, sort of. A couple months ago, Subaru revealed the new and improved next generation model of the BRZ, with a lower center of gravity, increased torsional stiffness, and a more aggressive driving experience. But that wasn't all. Subaru replaced the old BRZ's 2-liter F820D engine for a larger displacement 2.4-liter F824 from the Ascent SUV. With its extra 0.4 liters of displacement, the F824 will produce 28 more horsepower and 28 more pound-feet of torque. Now, this is definitely an improvement, but it still isn't exactly exceptional. What disappointed enthusiasts the most is that the F824 in the Ascent SUV has a turbo, but the all-new BRZ, which is going to have the same engine, won't have a turbo. But why? The F824 is capable of handling well over just 228 horses, which could easily be achieved with the addition of a turbo. So why didn't they add a turbo to the new BRZ, despite the fact that it's a sports car? What could Subaru possibly gain by not bolting up a turbo to the all-new BRZ? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at today in this episode of the Prototype Pages. Let's get into it, guys. There are 4 major possible reasons as to why Subaru decided to leave the all-new BRZ naturally aspirated. Number 1 would be cost. While turboing a car is an easy and efficient way to get an increase in power, it is an expensive process. Turbos themselves are not cheap, and along with turbos comes a turbo manifold, a downpipe, wastegate, a boost controller, an intercooler, a blow-off valve, and intercooler piping, not to mention oil lines and hoses, fittings and hardware, and of course, a more complex ECU tune. Because of all the things needed to turbocharge a car, adding one to the new BRZ would drive up manufacturing costs, in turn increasing prices for consumers to buy one. And that just goes against the mentality of the BRZ. The BRZ was never meant to be an expensive, high-performance, track record-setting race car. It has a similar mentality to a 240SX or an MR2 from 30 years ago, or a current-gen Miata or EcoBoost Mustang. They may not be the fastest cars in the world, but that helps keep prices down. The current 2020 BRZ has a base price of just under $29,000. And the 2022 upcoming all-new BRZ will start off at an estimated $31,000. These low prices attract a wide range of consumers. Sometimes you don't want the fastest car in the world. You just want something fun that doesn't break the bank. And that is where the BRZ truly excels. Reason number 2, weight and balance. The BRZ is well known for its superb handling and agility, which is made possible by the BRZ's lightweight, near 50-50 weight distribution, and a low center of gravity. Subaru has managed to keep the new BRZ under 3,000 pounds, which is pretty impressive. Now, we've talked about the various things required in order to turbocharge a car. Unfortunately, in a car as light as the BRZ, that can make a significant impact to the weight. Adding a turbo to the BRZ would ruin the balance, lightweight, and low center of gravity that the Subaru engineers worked so hard to perfect. Agility and handling are part of the BRZ's DNA. Is it worth sacrificing that just for a bump in horsepower? Subaru already has the more powerful turbocharged WRX, which is, I guess what you could call, a true sports car. But it doesn't make sense to do the same for the BRZ. Reason number 3 would be simplicity and reliability. The general rule of thumb with cars is the more moving parts you have, the less your reliability. Turbocharging the BRZ would mean adding many parts, each of which has a chance of failing. In addition, as a turbo forces more air into your cylinders, this results in more pressure, which can lead to pinging or knock in your engine. It will also place more force and stress on your pistons, connecting rods, and crankshaft, and can wear out your piston rings faster. So you may need to use higher octane fuel and stronger engine internals, which again leads to more cost. Loose hose clamps, leaky oil lines, all these small things can lead to large reliability issues in a turbocharged car. Turbos make great power and sick noises, but sometimes they just aren't as practical or reliable as a traditional naturally aspirated setup. And finally, the fourth possible reason as to why Subaru decided not to turbocharge the BRZ is the phenomenon that haunts all snails: turbo lag. When a smaller engine spins at a low RPM, it may not produce enough exhaust gas to spin the turbocharger. It may take a while for the turbocharger to get spinning so that it can provide boost and make more power. As a result, turbocharged engines can sometimes have peaky power bands, making little power in lower RPMs and having sudden bursts of horsepower and torque in higher RPMs. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you're competing in a motorsport in which you're constantly revving at a high RPM, such as drifting, then having a peaky power band may not be so much of a disadvantage. But auto manufacturers often prefer a more consistent power band. Rather than having sudden bursts of horsepower and torque at high RPMs, they're often willing to sacrifice the peak horsepower number for a more flat power curve that makes decent power throughout the entire RPM range, which makes sense for daily driving practicality. The all-new BRZ makes its peak 184 pound-feet of torque as low as 3700 RPM. If it had a turbo, it could probably make a lot more torque, but at a higher RPM due to turbo lag. It's possible that Subaru thought that turbo lag and a peaky power band would compromise the aggressive driving experience of the BRZ, and therefore decided to keep the BRZ naturally aspirated. So we've covered 4 possible reasons as to why Subaru might want to keep the BRZ naturally aspirated: price, weight and balance, simplicity and reliability, and finally, to avoid turbo lag. Now I understand that a lot of Subi fans still aren't satisfied with Subaru's decision. Personally, I think it would be really cool if the all-new BRZ at least had an option for a turbocharger. But I also believe that Subaru has reasons for doing what they've done, and I respect that. And Subaru does have an option for those who want a bit more speed: the WRX STI, with the big old snail and plenty of power. And another advantage of the BRZ remaining naturally aspirated is that you can have fun installing a turbo yourself. Other than that, I think that the all-new BRZ is sick. It's as nimble and agile as the old one, and I think it looks great too. There's been a lot of talk about the new BRZ styling and how it seems to take inspiration from many other cars. Personally, I think the rear taillights kinda look like a cross between an Aston Martin DB9 and a second-gen NSX, whereas the front kind of resembles a Tesla Model S, a Hyundai, and a 400Z put together. So what do you guys think about the new BRZ styling and Subaru's decision to keep it naturally aspirated? Let us know in the comments below. We would love to know what you guys think about it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.